productivity, winning strategies, and aligning employer-employee goals. If this sounds like something your business could use more of, then you've come to the right place. The Business Mechanic Show with your host, Vaughn Sigmon. Let Vaughn show you how to develop, improve, and jumpstart your business. So now, please welcome the host of The Business Mechanic, Vaughn Sigmon.
Hello, business owners, managers, and leaders in the making. Welcome to the Grand Symphony of Effective Meetings. In this podcast today, which will be a bit of a masterclass, we're going to be looking at how to endure a corporate gathering, but how to make it resonate with harmonious chords, lots of productivity, plenty of collaboration. So brace yourself. We're going to transform your meetings from tedious solos that don't get things done into harmonious symphonies. So let's raise the baton, shall we? Let's get going. Welcome to the Business Mechanic Show, where growth is the name of the game. I'm your host, Vaughn Sigmon, co-founder of Results-Driven Leadership. I'm joined today with my partner in crime, Eric Van Doren. Say hello to everyone, Eric Van Doren.
Hello, everyone. I can't wait to make some beautiful music today.
All right, let's do it. Because at Results-Driven Leadership, our expert guidance is going to empower you to establish a culture of progress and unleash the full potential of your company or your own personal potential. So with that, we're going to get back to the symphony because I'm the Maestro of meetings, my man.
You are.
Maestro. So let's talk about the correlation as we're joking around a little bit. I was trying to find something kind of catchy and interesting. Maybe this is it. And it's funny, Eric and I started talking about how I structured this out in a blog, and he and I were on exactly the same page. He'd always thought about meetings like putting together an album. Eric?
Yeah, I think the funny thing about it, when I read it, I'm like, was he in my brain? He's been in my brain for years and years. But yeah, I've always thought of concepts like this as putting together an album and what type of music you want to play, and and people resonate to that. So it's a catchy thing, and they get it when it's served up to them.
Well, so let's talk about it. If we think about a good symphony, that symphony has to have a little bit of a theme. Mm-hmm. And when that comes to a meeting, you have to identify some objectives. So what does that mean? We come into the meeting with a plan of what we're going to come out with the meeting with. So to me, the cornerstone of any successful meeting is a clearly defined goal or objective to what we're going to get out of the meeting. That becomes your guiding beacon to stick with your music, stick with the symphony music and the theme. And then you also need to assemble the players, the musicians, right, Eric? How do you think about the right people getting into the room? When you think about the objective, what you're going to come out with, what are some of your thoughts on who needs to be there in order to accomplish that objective?
Yeah, I think first the objective piece, just to dabble in that, is really you have a goal in your head or a musical tune that you want to touch and you want to play, and you have this vision. And obviously, normally it's set up as part of one of your goals or your corporate goals or your company goals. And you're always trying to, I guess, say, hit the drum beat a little bit, right? That little rhythm. Boom, boom. You're trying to be able to make sure you do that. Then you say to yourself, what am I playing here? And music wise, do I need a bass guitar? Do I need a guitar? Do I need a drum set? Do I need some saxophones? Do I need backups? Who needs to be at this meeting to make this album or this symphony work? I think that's the key thing. You don't want to have people in there, Vaughn, as you well know, wasting time or productivity when they didn't necessarily need to be in the meeting. So who's going to play on this album? Who's going to play in this symphony? I think that's a key point. And it's really about usually direct reports at the beginning. And then after a while, I would say sometimes we went to a monthly meeting where we brought in an extra person with that person that was underneath to give them some seasoning. Mm-hmm. And then a quarterly meeting, normally we try to at least touch base with somehow as a whole group, to make sure the vision is still continuing to go with our music. So to me, that's a platform that I used to use all the time. Is first, the direct reports, small and tidy, is always good. You get a little bit more collaboration that way as you move on in meetings. So that's how I would figure what the concept was, and then find out who needs to be there.
Yep. I tell you a personal example of that. I work with a company on a regular basis that the CEO he can be disorganized in his thoughts on a good day, and he can derail a meeting in a heartbeat. So back to the objective part, it's really important as I'm trying to teach his team to have a goal around a meeting. It's always, and to your point, having the right people in there. And this CEO had always poo-pooed having his terms, lower level folks, maybe leads or supervisors in this management meeting. Mm-hmm. But frankly, he's trying to fix his business, and business has been soft. He's trying to get it turned around. He needs to realize he's not the smartest guy in the room. He doesn't have all the answers. We need to go to as many people as we can, back to your point of getting as many players into this band as you can. So you want to have an objective, which is, you don't want it to turn into a disjointed jam session. You want it to stay on point. And as he drifted off, as a facilitator of the meeting, I had to grab it and bring it back and say, hold on, that's nice to talk about, but we're here to fix business, and that's not going to fix business. We're here to turn this business around and get things back on track. That's not going to be it. And he agreed. Yeah, you're right. Let's get back on track. Let's get back on the objective. We're going to fix business. And then having these extra people in the room, he had a lead. In this case, it was a customer service lead. Her name, we'll call her Brittany. Mm-hmm. And Brittany's in the room. And at the end, I said, okay, everybody, we're here to fix business. These are the things we're looking at to fix business. What are your ideas? And in the past, the CEO never included these people because he never thought they would come up with any ideas. And boom, Brittany's hand shot up and she says, have we ever thought about this? And I looked at the CEO. The CEO looks at me. We look at the general manager. We're all looking at each other. No, we hadn't. Damn, that's a good idea. And it's just amazing how we sometimes get so caught up in our head as to the solutions of things. Right. That we've got to just embrace the fact we don't have it all. And I'm not advocating that everybody needs to be in every meeting, but if we're trying to fix something, get those who are at the front lines involved in it, because they may have some experiences or knowledge that we don't consider because we're not facing it every day. And right. It's developmental, to your point. They're learning something from it. They're going to be better because of it. They're learning and growing. Great point on your part.
It really depends on how many layers you really have in your structure, because I think, for your point, for Brittany, so to speak, maybe the stuff that was going on wasn't necessarily trickling up to the CEO to make things to be fixed. And I've been in many meetings like that where someone brings something up and they go, I didn't even know that was the problem. The customer's telling us this is the problem, and we're not fixing it for our business. A countless number of times.
We get so fixated on what we think the problem is that when somebody comes along and says, what about this? We never had our eye on that. And maybe I'm risking something here. I don't think he listens to the podcast. So it was marketing. We got to fix marketing, fix business. And Brittany says, we have a really big cart abandonment number. Our cart abandonment number is horrible. What are we doing to fix that? It's like, oh, we hadn't thought about that. And actually, I had thought about it, but he wasn't thinking about it. Sure. And so now we've got another thing to look at that's 100% in our control.
That's
You know,
right.
they're getting 200,000 visits to their website and less than 1% are buying. How do we fix that?
Oh
We
boy.
don't need more people to the website. We're getting half the city of Long Beach every day to the website. We don't need more customers. We need to find a way to sell them more. So is it our message? So anyway, I'm not going to fix his business here on this podcast, but
Sure.
that's the sort of thing we've got to think about. And in order to make sure we're not driving off into some jam session, we need an agenda. We have to compose the score of this symphony and then make sure we have an agenda that includes our objective. So we need to tackle the composition of the meeting, the agenda. And instead of winging it or making it up as we go, or some bland and monotonous list of topics, where are we starting? Where are we going? Where are we crescendoing? And where are we going to exit this thing, leaving everybody happy?
Mhm.
Everybody thinks about the rhythm, the modulation of a meeting, but that's really critical. How have you thought about that, Eric?
Yeah, I always think of how something's put together, right? It's the hooks, the leads, the lyrics, the who's working with who and ready to showcase it. Because it's almost like when you're recording something, like got the album in my head, and you couldn't imagine just trying to figure it out when you're doing the recording. That's a lot of money wasted, a lot of time wasted. You got to go practice that piece a little bit, right? At least have some people that are the bass player with the drum guy. They keep the rhythm going on in the song or the album. And I think that's the key thing is understanding, what topics are going to be doing, and you got the right people in there, like we said before. It allows for a collaboration, which is always important on that aspect, composing the score.
Yeah. And when you have that score, that agenda that's well crafted
Yeah.
and balanced, too light and it lacks substance, too heavy becomes overwhelming. And so you need to aim for an agenda or a composition that provides just enough fodder for thought, yet maintains brevity to make sure we stay focused. So it's, you and I talked about 30 minutes is great for a meeting.
Right.
An hour is typical. Anything more than that, so not sure that's you're going to be able to keep everybody's attention. I think psychologically about 49 to 50 minutes is about it. So as you're making up this agenda, and if anybody wants a copy of a good agenda, I'll put a link in the podcast for you to download a really effective agenda, 1 hour agenda for you to follow. It could be a template for you, but in the end, you have to bring it home. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. We need to close the deal. We need to make sure everybody walks out of there with a piece of responsibility when they leave, a commitment, a consideration that they have some ownership of before they leave. And that's the crescendo at the end. That's how you keep them engaged to make sure stuff happens after this meeting. But it's an introduction of what we're going to accomplish. We talk through our ideas and thoughts. We make sure that there's a proper amount of involvement. Then there's a walkout commitment for everybody. And that needs to be done in a way that we're going to get it done in an hour. You can't solve the world's problems in an hour, but you can certainly get some of your team or your business's issues resolved in an hour.
For sure.
But keep it in an hour. Anything more than that, and you're losing your audience. It's like those back in the old days when there was 20-minute songs.
Moby Dick.
But the only way you could keep those songs listened to is you think about the crafting of the song. And Freebird was a 20-minute song, one of the iconic long rock songs. But you think about the closing to Freebird, it's way up here, but there's a beginning, which is a piano solo. It goes into the chorus and the song itself. There's that closing crescendo of a guitar solo, and then boom, it's over. Everybody walks out happy. So I'd never thought in 100 years I'd be able to reference Freebird as part of a meeting, but by God, I just did it.
You really did.
I did. Right off the top of my head. We don't practice this stuff, folks.
No, real
Anyway,
stuff.
and now back to assembling the team, assembling the orchestra. Who's in the band? And it's really critical. You and I both sat through meetings where we're staring at a watch saying, why in the hell am I in here? This has nothing to do with me. Or I've had somebody else sitting in the room that never had a word to say and said, why is this person in here? They could have gotten a lot of work done in this hour versus sitting in here being bored to death. So when you're assembling your orchestra, which is a skill, many people want to include everybody so that we don't potentially miss somebody. Not the right move. And it's not the right move to just have top level managers all the time, because just like the Brittany story, sometimes the frontline people had the best ideas or contributions. So it takes some thought. There's not a one size fits all. There's not a golden ticket to this. Eric, what are some of the thoughts that you put into it to make sure that you got the right butts in the right seats in a meeting?
Yeah, I think the first thing is, when you being in a career like I was for a number of years, and I'm a West Coast guy and we're in an East Coast company, so I did a lot of early Zoom calls or phone calls, and I was in a room or conducting in a space where the president was in there and the direct reports for her were in there. And, it used to be an 8 or 9 number of people, and we would talk about our sales, what's going on, how we can fix sales. We need some help with this type of thing. We go through, it depends on who was talking. I would talk for 15 to 20 minutes. And then somebody else would talk 10 to 15 minutes. And eventually we came to the agreement that us three who was doing the sales information, it came into about 40 minutes. And it was a long time for us to give that information for that group, which only maybe 1 or 2 were really paying attention. So we said, okay, what do we need to do? So we took turns. So there was one voice rather than 3 voices on this one subject. And so we get the notes in from a group in the East and the South and the West, and I would take this one and I would go through it. And the time was still 15 minutes is what we really try to keep it to. And then there's questions that would come up, and they would still be in the room as well. And they could answer some of the specifics that might be asked. So to me, it was, if we were doing the same thing about sales or information about that, it was good to have the same type of rhythm. Now, other meetings, we were in there and there might have been 100 people in the room. And I'd say maybe 5 talked. And for the longest time, we would go, why are they even here?
Yeah.
I'm glad they're here. There's people, lots of layers underneath it. But so it was always trying to find the right groove, right, to the music wise. And you're trying to say, who really needs to be here, how short it needs to be. Do you change it up all the time? And like you said at the beginning, the clarity of what you wanted, the objective, what you want to do. If the objective is just to hear us talk, we used to call it dancing bears. Watch us dancing bears play for you. That's what it felt like. And it felt not comfortable, and felt like when you talk and you prepare for hours before you do this, and there's only maybe 2 people listening, it becomes you're not as engaged, I guess, Vaughn, is really how it worked out for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned it in the beginning of the podcast. If you're developing somebody, take them up a level, take them up a meeting. I used to, when I was developing executives for CarMax, when I would bring let's say a general manager into one of our RVP meetings, and have them sit there and absorb it, see what it's like, because I'm developing you to be leading this meeting someday. And at the same time, I'm testing them, because do they have any contribution to this? And I would encourage them to contribute, but they didn't always. But very often their contribution was very valuable. But I was very selective about who else I brought into it. They needed to bring a contribution. They needed to bring something to the party. All right, somebody's bringing the beer, somebody's bringing the chips, somebody's bringing the nacho dip, whatever.
Yep.
What's this person bringing to this meeting that's going to round it out? And that's what this is way harder than most people put thought into it, isn't it, Eric?
It is.
And
To bring somebody new into the party and to introduce them as one of your go-tos, I think there's ways to get them to conduct and have conversations. Say, for instance, me and Brittany, I took Brittany's below me and I take her into this meeting. I may say, hey, Brittany and I were talking about something here on this piece. Brittany, why don't you explain what's going on here, and almost force her to get into the mix. I think sometimes it's just being able to get into the meeting is hard for a new person.
Right. And you made a really good point. You were tuning up Brittany, right? You're getting her prepared for the meeting. This is what we're going to talk about. What are your thoughts on it? Bring that to the meeting. I need you to bring that out. And so she knows her part, what she's going to bring to the party, what she's going to contribute to this music, and make sure that you're prepared, they're prepared, that we're not going in there blind, assuming everybody knows what they need to contribute. There may be some communication with the entire group ahead of time is, here's our objective to the meeting. Here's what we want to come out with. Here's what you need to be thinking about as your contribution so that we can make this the most effective meeting. Preparation is key to almost everything, but even a meeting. But how many meetings, Eric, have you sat in that they're coming in, we're having a meeting, it just seems like we're having a meeting to have a meeting?
Like I said, many times. And it's very frustrating. But the cool thing is, I think, just to go on top of what you said there, when you pick up that baton, right, when you're pulling out the orchestra, is really before the meeting, the prep before the meeting is to say, hey, I know you were just in this meeting about some of our new software that's coming up. Hey, could you go over this piece of it? I need you to do this. And by the way, when this person is going on, I need you to walk through the controlling aspects of where we are in money flow or whatever it is. I want you to give me 3 minutes in that. So you give them, this is what I need from you. This is what I need from you. You'll fill in and navigate as you go. But if you have those, I'll call them pillars of things that you want to touch in your meeting, and so you really almost got to tell them, this is what I need. And obviously they're going to expand upon what they've learned from this or their expertise. And those are the meetings to me were the meeting that it was a half an hour or 45 minutes and it felt like 10 minutes.
Because it was boom.
Yeah. Right? Yes.
And so just a couple minute conversation. We're going to be talking about this. I need you to talk about this because this is what we want to solve, or this is what we want to accomplish. So you need a little pre-meeting collaboration. I had one time, because I've practiced this, folks. I'm not just making this up. I've actually done this almost my entire career, and I teach you how to do it. We teach you how to do it. I remember once grabbing a person I was developing and says, okay, let's start planning for this meeting. And he looked at me with kind of a grin on his face. He said, you mean we're going to meet about a meeting? I said, yeah, we're going to meet about a meeting. And depending on the stakes, right? The more preparation you put into a high stakes meeting or something that's meaningful, and they all have some level of stakes, right? There's some level of something you want to accomplish that's valuable to your team or your organization. A little collaboration ahead of time, a little preparation, especially on the disc scale. Anybody that's a high I or a high S or C, they've got to have time to prepare for this. They just cannot make stuff up or wing it during a meeting. They've got to have time and thought and consideration, or they are going to come up way short for you at this meeting. Yeah. They're not going to play their piece of music very well. So ahead of time, them having the agenda ahead of time, collaborating with them with a little pre-meeting collaboration, understanding what we're looking to accomplish, what they need to do or contribute in order to us accomplishing that. Then you get everybody together and they know their piece of music, and bam, boom, we're making it good. So
yeah, it's almost I got this thing I've been practicing on, that like this little drum beat, right? And the cool thing about a new drum beat or something, maybe keep somebody off guard. So it's like that, no surprises to your boss. I think sometimes in meetings there's zingers out there, and I've been many times where the boss didn't know it was coming. You know what I mean? Where like you have this idea and you almost have to preempt, hey, I'm thinking about saying this about this piece. I'm not sure if this is the right thing to do at this meeting or should be offline. I think sometimes there's things that happen and you want to get your boss pissed off. I'll tell you, it's a good way to do it.
Yeah. I don't know that I ever did that to one of my bosses, but I've had that done to me.
Oh, heck yeah. I've exactly. And it's please, no surprises. Thank you.
Yeah.
Afterwards.
So, and then there's the conductor. Somebody's got to conduct this meeting, conduct this symphony. That's the facilitation part of it. And facilitation is certainly probably the most important part. Somebody's got to lead this thing and make sure that we're staying on topic, staying on the agenda, that everybody's ready. That's the facilitator's role. And it's time to pick up the baton and conduct the symphony. And one other thing before I forget about it, many organizations or teams have that guy that just loves to hear themselves talk, or lady, or is that high I that will drive the team off into a very engaging topic. It just ain't what's on the agenda. Is the facilitator's role is to grab that, bring it back into what the agenda is. You got to reinforce what the objective and purpose is for this meeting. Don't allow anybody to drive it off in a ditch. Even if you risk offending somebody, you're going to risk offending one person for the accomplishment of not offending all. Because let me tell you, you don't offend that one person and you've driven off into a ditch, and all of a sudden the hour's up and we got to get back to whatever, and we haven't accomplished anything. You've offended everybody.
Yes.
And I just wanted to catch that. So facilitate it, keep it on track, understand, you need to establish ground rules. And it's the harmony of the meeting, setting expectations. You were talking about earlier, speaking times. You got 3 minutes, you got 5 minutes. And then people need to actively listen and be able to contribute constructively. It's important and to have these rules of engagement, how we're going to treat each other in an organization, period. But certainly during a meeting, there's no eye rolling. There's no put downs. There's nothing rude that takes place. That's part of the facilitator's role, and that needs to be a general rule. But how have you handled the conduct of how people should behave during a meeting?
The wild solo that you don't expect to happen. Music wise, you got to put that down. I think that the one that's been the biggest piece in a number of years, for the last 10 years or so, is really this piece. You probably can't see it unless you're on YouTube. It's the phone. I'm talking about making sure your etiquette is correct. Is you got to take your phone off, put it on vibrate, and that is one of the biggest things. You're involved in the actual meeting itself. You're not. It's so easy nowadays to be distracted, and if you don't set that ground rule up, it could be damaging. Because hey, did you see somebody was doing this? Did you see the things that go on afterwards? It starts to lower your level as the orchestrator person, making sure that this is done, this is not done. That's the biggest thing that I've seen in practice, is really the distracting area of it. And I think it's super important. I know we talked about this a little bit before we went on air, and it is one of those hardest things to do, because I never necessarily thought of me of orchestrating. I figured since it was written and who was speaking, that they would just fall in line and do what was said that needs to be said, right, or done. And I think that was one of the things that I caught myself. Of course, I would orchestrate it, but sometimes I catch myself being offline, that aspect, not making sure that the setup was the right way and I was orchestrating to where the goal needs to be set. And that's just the main thing. Always know where your goal is, what you want to do for your meeting, and it allows you to stay on course and stay on rhythm for your song.
And it's the facilitator's role to make sure that happens.
Yes.
And also to watch body language, pick up on the subtleties of the meeting, the subtleties of the discussion. Are there any undertones? Is there anything? Do you watch somebody's body language? Did they just check out? They just did they just get offended by something, or do they just completely disagree with that? You got to watch for this stuff and then bring it back. You got to make sure you cure that at the meeting. You can't walk out without everybody's 100% commitment. And you've got the loud voices I talked about earlier that you got to keep in line. But you also need to be watching out for those quieter voices, somebody that's not contributing. You got to get them into the pool, because you don't want them drowned out by this loud voice. But secondly, and I've said this a lot of times on this podcast and in training sessions and coaching sessions, is that the quiet person generally is the person who has the best ideas.
Yeah.
They're very well thought out. And you, as a conductor of this symphony, you've got to make sure you've got to drag this person in. You can't, there's best practices to this. And I'm going to share a best practice that very often gets overlooked, does not get used, is when you've got somebody that's quiet, you can't look at them and call them out. You can call on them, but you can't call them out. And calling on them is, okay, Eric, I was wondering what's been your experience with this, or Eric, what are your thoughts on this? Or Eric, you ask an open-ended question to draw Eric into it versus Eric, do you have something to say?
No.
Eric, any questions on this?
None here.
That's the response you're going to get, right?
Absolutely.
So again, we didn't practice that, but that's how it works. So you need to tell them what you want them to repeat to you with an open-ended question. You got to draw it out. You can't ask an open or a closed-ended question. It's got to be an open-ended question, and in a way that's going to be encouraging them for them to speak. Eric, you're the subject matter expert. You do this all day, every day. What are your thoughts? And not, Eric, any thoughts on this?
Exactly.
Very subtle difference, but Eric's going to give you some information. You say, Eric, pay him a little compliment. You're really good at this.
Right.
What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah.
That's facilitation at its highest form. So
it's beautiful.
The facilitator, the conductor of this symphony, the facilitator of this meeting, make sure every voice is heard, that you're not letting somebody overtake the meeting, that you're staying on course. It's watching your body languages and your subtleties that are going on in there. And then we're going to get to the crescendo of all this in a minute, but making sure that we're including everybody, that it's a rich dialogue, that it's a respectful dialogue. We talked about the ground rules, and you're the referee on the side, making sure everything's getting followed.
Right. And I think there's a piece there, a little further than that. It's almost pulling the nuggets out, right? Like you said, the quiet people with those open-ended questions, and you're trying to pull those nuggets because they're there, because you've had conversation other than just this meeting with them probably at some point, because they're in the meeting, because they want to say something. And sometimes those are the biggest things that can build upon it, and somebody else might jam in a little jam session, right? And they have a little conversation. That's sometimes where things are born and fixed, and for whatever subject you're trying to go through. So those are cool things. So yeah, call on those folks in a nice, it does make you feel good, by the way, when you say you're the expert on this, by the way.
It does. It feeds the dialogue, or it encourages the dialogue. And it's so simple to do. And it's generally the truth.
It is.
And now we're going to get to the point of the meeting that I think is the part that is the most widely missed and screwed up time after time, and that's the wrap up. And there's two stages, in my opinion. Let me get your opinion on this, Eric. There's two stages to this wrap up. There's a dialogue of a wrap up. Okay, guys, at about 15 minutes till 10 minutes till the end of the meeting, you want to say, here's what we've agreed or talked about today. We've talked about this, we've talked about this, we've talked about this. You do a summary of the key points, the decisions made, the next steps. You're saying to the group what has been captured during this. It's a wrap up, a quick wrap up. Yep. And you're giving yourself plenty of time to do it so you don't miss this part. This is absolutely mandatory. Thoughts on this, Eric?
To me, it's always there's two things that we always did was the takeaways. We did a round robin and what's your takeaway of today's meeting? And the thing is, you could never just repeat what somebody else said because it happens all the time. Hey, Vaughn, what was and the person, goes through what the takeaway was, a meeting of what they took away. They might add two things. And then the next person always says, what, Vaughn? Yeah, I was going to say the same thing with that. And
that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, same thing. But everyone has to come up with a free thought of what's going on. One takeaway. And then I think the thing is, I think you mentioned earlier about your ownership, right? What do you own in this meeting? What's your goal with this meeting? What's your ownership? So it's okay, hey, Vaughn, you're going to be doing this. Make sure we're correct with that. And you're like, yeah, absolutely, this is my deal. I'll have it to you by next Tuesday. So there's timelines there. You know what you're going to take away. You know what they own. And it feels great because everyone has it's like a huddle. It's a play, right? Or we're not doing plays, but huddle. Go do the out. Go do the circle. Do this. And I think everyone knows what's going on, and it allows everyone to come back the next time, if it's the next week or during the week, to say, this is what I take away. This is what we got done and accomplished. And I think that's how you move along goals.
Absolutely. And there's the dialogue where we're stating what we're committing to, what we've agreed to. And then there's the assignments. You're the clear task that you just talked about. Who's going to do what by when? Who, what, when? Who, what, when? Yeah. I can't tell you that enough as the one that's by far the biggest atrocity conducted in every meeting is we don't talk about who's going to do what by when. Yeah. The wrap up is the most important part of the meeting is here's what we agreed to, who's going to do what, it's clear tasks and responsibilities. And let me give you this is part of the master class on this, folks. Yeah. You can't say, Eric, this is what you're going to go do. Sally, this is what you're going to go do. Lonnie, this is what you're going to go do. You've got to say, okay, Eric, what are your commitments to this? If you don't do it that way, what you think Eric is committed to and what Eric is committed to, what you think his timeline should be versus what Eric's timeline should be, could be out of alignment. That's where the frustration and the lack of execution comes in. As the facilitator, you have to say, Eric, what is your commitment and takeaway to this? Yep. And you've got to hear it back because I don't know. I'll bet anybody that I think maybe I have $60 in my wallet right now. I'll bet anybody $60 that if you tell them, and then a week from now, you're going to be disappointed. But if they tell you, two things are going to happen. One, 90% of the time, they don't have it all. They did not commit fully into what you expected them to do. Mm-hmm. There was a missing piece there. And then you've got to get that filled in. So it goes like this. Yeah, boss, I'm going to get the Jennings report finished, and I'm going to knock out all that work in the stock room, and I'll get that done next week. Okay, thank you for that. But what about the work you were going to do on XYZ? Oh, yeah. And what day next week are you going to get this done? Oh, Wednesday. Yeah, I need it by Tuesday. Okay, I'll get it done by Tuesday. You've got to be specific, and you need to hear from them what they're taking away, because let me tell you, you'll be on a different page from them if you just tell them. Agreed, Eric?
Oh boy. Telling them as it goes in an ear. Sometimes it's just to get them off the call or off the Zoom. They just want to say yes, as quickly as you can, and don't allow them just to say that. They got to come back and tell you what they're going to do, when they're going to do it, how they're going to do it.
Absolutely. And this is the classic. Okay, everybody agreed? Everybody got their assignments? Yeah, okay, go. And off in the wind, all that great work went. A dandelion. So it's need to be on point with facilitation, have them tell you what they're committing to, that they're going to do what by when, and it needs to match exactly as you understand it to be. Do
So
not
don't
leave that.
Yeah, so don't have a meeting and have a wrap up of 3 minutes.
No, that's
when
the
it's the
reason why
most.
I say about a quarter up, 10 till.
That's right. It's
Give
almost
yourself
a
plenty of
quarter of the
time
meeting
because,
should be almost wrap up.
yep, because they're likely to be off base.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's the meeting. And now here's the second most offended of effective meetings, or playing a well-crafted symphony.
Yeah.
The follow-up. So what happens after the meeting? The end of the meeting is not the end of the story. It's the beginning of the new chapter, right? It's the beginning of the next song.
That's correct.
And so and I strongly encourage somebody always be a scribe during this meeting. Somebody captures the notes. Now, with today's AI, you've got Otter, Word records things, PowerPoint records your words. Now, everything records what you're saying and turns it into text. Utilize that, or you can go the old-fashioned way and have somebody scribe it for you. However you choose, somebody needs to take notes. And I use Otter extensively. Otter's listening to this and transcribing it as we speak. Otter listens to everything I do and transcribes it. And that way I've been able to give up the legal pad. And then send out those meetings send out those notes after the meeting, summary of what we agreed to, capturing the essence of the meeting and providing a reference point for everybody, and the follow-up. Sally's going to do this, Eric's going to do that, Lonnie's going to do that. And so we've not only gotten the commitment at the meeting, we've sent out what they committed to after the meeting. It's all documented. It's funny how when it's documented, it is real, but you get a higher level commitment to it. And it's also for you, when you come back to the follow-up meeting, and there should always be a follow-up meeting, that becomes your resource, because you're not going to remember everything as to everybody that was there, what everybody committed to. It's your piece of music to follow on the next go round. How have you handled this post-meeting follow-up?
Yeah, before the advent of this wonderful Otter, obviously it was anything from copying or email of what went through on the agenda, and we would have a scribe, and the scribe would write what the commitments were at the end of it. So you'd have a name, a commitment, and do how it worked. Back before that, obviously you don't need to go back before that, but that was the handwritten stuff, scanning, faxing, that kind of stuff. That's obviously, thank God that's old, because that was a lot of work nowadays. But I think the key thing with the Otter, which is I found it fascinating, it captures everything, but whoever commits to these things, their eyes have to be on it, because you get all the information, you committed it in the town square with your band saying, this is what I'm going to do. I'm doing this by this time. And then like, meeting's over. I got to go back to my real job or do what I need to do. And they forget about what the meeting notes are. So they got to make sure your eyes go back on that. And I think to know what your commitment is. So it's really the follow-up aspect of the post meeting. And somebody, obviously you as the boss, would maybe send a note out, or somebody who's holding them fort, I guess an operations manager or somebody could do that as well. But the follow-up within the next couple of days is always a good thing. 48 hours.
You got it. It's the execution is in the follow-up. So well said, Eric. And you need to schedule the follow-up meeting. You need to make sure everybody's got the due dates very well understood, that you're following up. The first time you don't follow up and ensure that those due dates or those commitments were met, you've just approved them not doing it.
Push it down.
So any kind of commitment in the future is questionable as to whether that's a commitment or not. So again, as the facilitator, as the boss, it's up to you to make sure that you have in place how you're going to follow up and make sure these things are done, because that's going to create the right behaviors in the future as to their commitment to being part of the solution, or coming back to the objective of this meeting and being problem solvers.
And I know just one added piece here is, I think I've been in so many meetings as you have as well. And I think you get your commitment, you've announced it to the world and God that you're going to be doing this by this time. And then obviously, if you're one of the higher ups and you have a group that's going to be implementing this or executing this piece, usually have a meeting before the meeting, have the meeting. Then we usually have a little bit of a meeting to say, okay, this is what we captured here. And that was like a 10-minute meeting. So it was a recap of the meeting, not just the notes. This is what I used to do back in the day before Otter. And that seemed to work pretty good. It's almost like you deal out what needed to be done and then with the timeline. So maybe that was a bit too much middle management, I guess. But I did do that for a while.
Listen, I and my teams always had the reputation of getting it done. We got done what we said we were going to get done. And that didn't happen out of chance. It happened out of what Eric and I shared with you today. It's a process. You follow this process and stuff gets done. People hit their commitments, you hit your goals, you finish your projects, you have less stress, you have less turnover, you have less ambiguity. Things are just freaking better. It takes a little extra work, and it's probably work that you're not currently doing. There's some people who've been listening to this has already checked out. Oh, I can't do all that. Hell yes, you can. And if you ever want to be any damn good at what you do, you need to do it. You have to do it. So, there you have it. Here you have it, brave business owners, rising leaders, y'all who are trying to get better and better. It ain't easy. Nothing good in my life ever came easy, and it's not going to come easy to you either. This whole effective meeting thing, it's an intricate dance. It's an intricate piece of music that if you don't foster collaboration, you're not ever going to get things done right. It's no small feat getting everything done, but there's a process to it. It's a process that, when well executed with the right guidance, dash of patience, you can absolutely conduct a grand symphony that produces exactly what you're looking for. So hopefully there's some key takeaways for everybody today. I will put a link in the show notes for the agenda, the sample agenda. I'll put in there a link to our course on how to conduct effective meetings. It's video training with all the tools, including the agendas, et cetera, that you need to be an effective facilitator of meetings. Everything you need is going to be in there. And listen, once again, if you like this podcast, please share it. If you think there's somebody else that can benefit, share it with somebody else. We'd really appreciate that. That helps us get recognized by others and helps more ears get exposed to this. Yep. If you like it, please like it. Please rate us, give us some feedback. At the bottom of the show notes, sign up for our newsletter. We send one out every week. It's full of tips, tricks, and hacks to be able to be a more effective leader. Love to have you join us. We'll never spam you. We'll never sell your information. We don't play those games, but we'd love for you to continue learning from us. That's why we're here every week. That's why we take the few hours that it takes every week to get this podcast to you. So help support us so we can better support you. Eric, thank you for your time today, as always, sir.
Thank you, Vaughn.
And we will talk to you all again next week. Well, that's a wrap on another episode of the Business Mechanic Show. If today's content resonates with you, then you're going to love what we have to offer. For those of you who are ready to take your business or personal career to the next level, we have an array of training and coaching services tailored just for you. From performance coaching designed to enhance your potential, to executive coaching that guides leaders to steer their ships towards greater success. Are you in sales management or looking to fortify your leadership acumen? Dive into our sales management training and coaching. Not only will it sharpen your strategies, but it will also provide you an ROI that's undeniable. Remember, the best investment you can make is in yourself and your team. For those seeking flexible learning options, we're excited to share our online and in-person management leadership classes. These aren't just your typical courses. They are meticulously crafted, ensuring that they align with your unique needs and aspirations. And the best part, prices start at just $47 per month, making top-tier coaching and training accessible for everyone. Your growth, both personally and professionally, can have a ripple effect, the one I call the transformational triangle of change. The skills you learn, the perspectives you gain, and the efficiencies you create can translate into increased revenues, more cohesive teams, and an enriched company culture. So why wait? The potential ROI on this investment isn't just in dollars, it's in the progressive future you're carving out for yourself and your organization. Thanks once again for tuning in. And remember, every business needs a tune-up every now and then. Let the Business Mechanic Show be your guide. Check out our website, rdltraining.com, to discover more details on our programs and coaches. We have a link in the show notes to guide you there. Until next time, we're out of here.